Yeah, so I think I've said everything. Just to recap, in this age of media, everything here is an image. Well, at least there is an image, because anything or anybody watching this back is going to be looking at an image. And it's an image that records the light in this situation now, but the point is it's recorded. So the moment, the living things, the life, the time that was ticking, this moment is gone. And just to illustrate, I can do more of me with this mirror that I found. There we go. So there's a me, here's a me, there's a bluebell, there's more bluebells, there's hundreds of bluebells. Now this proliferation of objects is only possible because we're not seeing the real object, we're seeing the light from it. And we deduced from that light that there's an object there. And we know there's an object there because come back in a few days' time and it'll have changed. These won't last forever. We've probably only got a week or two to go. And the plant carries on growing and it changes and it lives. So the light is an image, or it enables us to create an image. But the process of that is quite interesting because we don't just paint a picture, we have consciousness as well. And the way we think consciousness happens is wrong. And that's the reason for this particular video. I'm just going to make it again, actually, see if this is any clearer. The way we think consciousness happens is wrong because we understand consciousness as suddenly becoming relevant when someone is looking. So what we do is we take a bluebell that's sitting in a forest with no one there, and then we think someone turns up, sees the bluebell, magically it's consciousness, and the bluebell really exists, which is a bit true, but we go one step too far. So just to quickly run through, from your perspective, and this is what I got wrong in the previous videos, you're a third person perspective. So you can see the process of me seeing. Here's a bluebell, although it's an image, but there's a bluebell here. Then there's light, or there's a gap to my eye, and you know that the light must get into my eye, stimulate neurons, goes to my brain does stuff, and then I can go, there's a bluebell. And you can scientifically watch all that from a third person perspective. But this is the thing that is not clear in the previous videos. I don't have a third person perspective on this. I only have a first person perspective, and the first person perspective means that this gap from here to here, and even this eye, and even this brain, this whole process becomes the bluebell. So the bluebell needs all this, brain, eyes, this gap, the light going, and the real thing. The bluebell that I see needs all of that in order to exist. Which means that this thing that I'm looking at here has been seen already. Now what we then do is we think about it, and because we have this belief that someone needs to see it in order for it to exist, we then take that whole process, which has already just happened, and then we stick on top of it the idea that this thing hasn't been seen yet, which it clearly has because I can see it. Then we think that there's somebody over here looking at it. But that can only be put in afterwards, because what is this person looking at if this bluebell hasn't already been seen? And that is the mistake. And the Buddha calls it a second arrow. The first arrow is the experience, which is the real thing that's just happened, which is seeing a bluebell. And the second arrow is your brain trying to understand what's going on. And so we introduce, on top of this first person perspective, a sneaky third person perspective where we understand that somebody is seeing the bluebell. And that solves a whole load of philosophical problems. But it also does one other thing. It means that the person I think is me doesn't exist. The person I think is me is exactly what I just said. It's what I think. I think it's me. So the mental process that needs to be done to undo this, or to see it clearly, is to realize that the world that's unfolding right now, the real world, the world that is, the world that's causing all these images. And look how many bluebells we've got now. The world that's causing all these images, the real world, is happening right now. And when you see something, it's been seen. So we think that the bluebell exists over here. But how do we know that? We know that because we can see it. So it's already been seen. For it to be sitting here, it must have been seen already. And then on top of that, we then add mental processing to go, what the hell's going on? And what the hell's going on is that here's something, and I'm over here, and I'm looking at it. But we've put that in on top because that's not actually what's happening. What's actually happening is seeing that's really going on. And what seeing really looks like is things being seen. I mean, the words just sound stupid. But our way of thinking is slightly wrong. The reality of sensing the world is that the world is there. The brain, the eye, it's all already working to make this thing here, to make all these images. It's already happening. And then, when I say I am looking at the bluebell, that is what's happening in reality. You don't need an eye in there to see the bluebell because that's happening by itself. The eye is a thought, a model, a piece of analysis that we do afterwards where we go, well, how is there a bluebell out there? Oh, good, it's because I'm looking at it. And then we understand what's going on. But the point is, that understanding is the second process. Yeah, which has this amazing implication that the self that we assume is there, that we assume is fundamental, the self where we go, if I am not in the forest, then nothing happens. That self is actually a mental fabrication. We think it. And it's not actually there in the sensory world. Because the sensory world, the bluebell happens all by itself. There's no evidence for me in that bluebell. It's just a bluebell. I mean, obviously you think about it and you go, well, look, the bluebell wouldn't be here if there was no one looking at it. So someone must have rocked up. Some eyes must be there to see it. You know, there's a mirror there creating more of them. And that's only possible because we're not looking at real bluebells, we're looking at the light. They're all images, all of its images. So yeah, there's stuff going on here. We're not saying that. We're not saying it's just there. All complex processes of eyes and brains and consciousness, yes. But what it looks like is just the bluebell. When all those processes have happened, when all those processes are happening, the result is that. And then on top of that we go, where's the bluebell? How did that happen? Why is this bright blue wonderful thing sitting in front of me? Let's understand that. It's because I'm looking at it. And I must be here to be looking at it. But that we think about afterwards. So this I is not fundamental. So Descartes was cheating slightly. I think therefore I am. He's got it all the wrong around. There were thoughts. Descartes had some thoughts. They were doubts to begin with in his philosophy. He doubted. Oh, yeah, we're not arguing with that. He doubted. But what he then added to the situation was who's doubting. And then he thought, oh, well, I'm doubting. In fact, what he thought was, I cannot doubt that I'm doubting. So yeah, he ended up with a contradiction. So he realized that the doubts must be real. But then, which is fine, the doubts are definitely there. But he went a little bit too far, because he then introduced this idea of a self as though it was axiomatic, where in actual fact, it's a thought itself. So he introduced the thought that he existed. And you can say, who thought that? And you go, well, I thought that. Well, no, that's still you thinking, isn't it? You can't think the thinker, because you need the thinker to think. So that's it, you just drop it. So yeah, the self is a thought, and we go all the way through our lives without really thinking about that, and we struggle and we hassle and we get obsessed and we construct models and we analyze and we fight this and we fight that and with this and with that and with all the other things, but they're all dualistic thoughts. This and that, this bluebell, that bluebell, many bluebells, millions, myriad thoughts, sticks, leaves. But each of these things is a thought, and it must not be confused with this reality. And that actually feels like something. No doubting that feels like something. I mean, that's ridiculous for you, because there's no way you can even record feelings at the moment. You can record the light, because it's a camera. Cameras are designed to record light. You could record the neurons. But for me, clear evidence, for me there's something happening right here, right now, that's not being recorded. And the moment I take the stick away, it's gone. And now I can think, oh, what was going on there? Oh, I was feeling a stick being hit against my forehead. And I can analyze it and I can introduce the self. And this is when the whole complex world happens, because if someone else did that, you know, I might not think anything to begin with, but I go home and I'm sitting at home going, wait a second, that guy was hitting me on the head with a stick. What a bizarre thing to do. Oh, I don't like him anymore. Well, I didn't like that actually. He didn't like being hit on the head. Oh, I hate him actually. No, he's bad. I don't like him. Right, I'm going to take my revenge. Oh my God, it's happened. this literally, the being hit on the head is gone. But if it was someone else doing it to me, in 2 days' time, I could be thinking all millions of thoughts about what I'm going to do with them and how I'm going to get a stick and beat them. But these are thoughts. The actual events, the stuff that I can't record, gone already. So that's the difference between the self, which is a thought, and all the very complicated thoughts that come from that thought, and the reality, which does not have a self in it. Now, ChatGPT would disagree with that. I think ChatGPT's been trained on the wrong stuff. Anyway, I don't know if that's any clearer. I will look at this video back as a different person. Sorry, on the previous video, if I don't post that one, I started, first of all, by looking at nature again. And I'll keep the video going because I was just walking down an ancient trackway, which has been eroded over centuries by thousands of people walking down it, and cattle and carts and God knows what else going down it, and over the centuries eroding it. So this path joins up with 7 other paths, which you can see on the ancient maps. I don't know if they're all open still, but this is a very important thoroughfare in the local area, which has been used for centuries. Who knows how long. It's now owned, if I get political, by a grouse shoot. Well, not a grouse shoot, a pheasant shoot, lowland flightless birds, pointless targets for a bunch of idiots as far as I know. Yeah, very, very damaging to the environment. But anyway, that's where the money's at. I will keep the camera rolling to see that. And I was just saying about nature. I've got a whole extra thing to say on nature actually, because all these are within my nature series, but I don't really talk about nature anymore. Yeah. Anyway, maybe shouldn't even talk. It's just nice to be here. I'm going to talk because there's plenty of time to sit in forests. First of all, we're saying goodbye to the sun after a month of pretty much no rain. So the rain is coming, so I think all the animals and everything are going to be very happy. Look at the state of the soil on that field. Oh, call it climate change. It's definitely different. Just on the nature thing, I will do that now. So people say that nature is good for your mental health. People love coming into nature. It lets them forget things. It recharges people. There's energy here. And then some say, well, we evolved to be in nature. We're animals. Our brains are wired. Sun's good for the pituitary gland. Is it melanin? Helps with our hormones and sleep. And, you know, it's all true. But I would say the most important thing is what I would, wouldn't I? It's what I've just discussed. There's no self in nature. Self is a social construct, and it's something we think, and we've been taught to think, but it's not real. So you can sit in a forest, and the forest can just be getting on. And you're seeing of the forest, and you're hearing of the forest, and you're smelling of the forest, and you're hearing of the forest, and you're touching of the forest, can just be getting on. And there need be no one there. Which is an interesting take on if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, what does it sound like? Well, in fact, there is no one there to hear it. Not in that sense. And I need to make that clear then. So what do I mean by that? So obviously you need an ear. And there does need to be somebody in the sense of a brain, maybe some kind of linguistic sentence. So I can go, I heard the tree fall. I mean, if I had no way of talking and I just heard the tree fall. So you need quite a lot of stuff all connected together. Tree goes down, ear hears it, brain goes, there's a sound, records it into memory maybe, decides what it is, and then can say there's a tree going down, or tree's gone down, or tell people I heard a tree go down. What did it sound like? I heard it. So that is all true. But that's not what a self is. A self, in the sense that we're using it here, is the thought that we have about who is doing all of this. That thought is a socially constructed addition to the situation. So it's true, I'm sitting in a wood and I'm listening to things. But who that is, it's not real. It's not real. That is a bit of a weird one, yeah. That's literally like being naked. Take off all your clothes, take off your social construction, take your memories of who you are, what people have told you about yourself, your history, your culture, everything that you think about yourself. It's not wrong, but it is a thought about yourself, whereas the true me is here, involved in listening to the bird, talking, seeing the bluebells. And let's be clear, seeing the bluebells means making them happen. To see a bluebell is for a bluebell to be there. That's all you need to do. Don't need to paint it, no poetry. Don't even need to go, I am looking at the bluebell. No moments of profound self-consciousness. Just the bluebell being there is you seeing a bluebell. Now afterwards you can recall that you were in the woods and you saw the bluebell and I wandered lonely as a cloud and do all kinds of mental activity. But the initial process of the bluebell being there is you seeing it. That is you seeing it. Analyze it afterwards and go, I am seeing the bluebell is another thing that's happening afterwards. That's the I. The who is seeing the bluebell is the I that we're talking about. The bluebell itself is the real self, if there is such a thing, if we can call it that. And we don't, because there's no point. because that would be just a thought of who I am. So we just do away with that. That is as close to the true self as you're going to get. So nature has no who in it. Nature is the who. And that's why it's so refreshing, so grounding, so real. That social I is not here, unless I think it. And nature was never made to have it. So there is nobody who here. There is just here. Now I think that's pretty close actually to what Buddhism is saying. And I think a lot of people say the religions are all saying the same thing. I think that is a take. I'm not saying that's the only take on the truth. I think all takes on the truth are right for different people at different times. But nature, I think, is a recurrent theme. But people do identify something about the experience of being in nature with a fundamental truth. And I think, as I said already in other videos, that conservation, these kind of things, these high-level political decision-making processes, legalese, moral philosophy, all this stuff is very, very high level, very thought. It's all long after the event. That is nature. If you can't see why that is valuable, then there's no point in conservation. Ironically, I think it's the self that blocks us to this. Because people will go, oh, I'm looking at Bluebell, they'll take a photo of it. They then go home and they show their friends and they go, oh look, I've got a photo of Bluebell. I've seen the Bluebells, right, what do we do next? Let's go to the cinema. But that I that we're kicking around like a football is this socially constructed one that's not even here. I mean, who's going to the cinema? What, the person who saw the Bluebell? The one embedded in the process of this Bluebell manifesting? The one that needs to be here, the camera that needs to be here, and the person watching the video that needs to be there for this to happen? That person goes to the cinema? No, that's the person in your calendar who goes to the cinema. Date, time, gets a ticket. But the person who's involved in seeing that right now is not that person. It's not a person. Not something you can point a finger at, think about. It's embedded in the very experience itself, which means you may as well not even have it. I think in Buddhism they use emptiness, shunyata, because that essential requirement for things to manifest is itself none of the things that manifest. So yeah, it's best not to even think about self. Not a real self in the present moment. No. Just do away with that thought. It's a social thought, constructed thought, and you can get rid of it. It doesn't happen. Anyway, I have got to go, and I've drifted around on this topic for long enough, so just enjoy a bit more nature. I'm going to wander off down the ancient track, and I'm going to find somewhere safe to put this mirror. Right,